Hey, this is Voxside, and this will be everything you need to know about this After Effects template and how to use and edit it. Alright, so there are two versions of this template. One will be with plugins required, and that will be that's gonna require you to have a trapcode particular. And the other one will be no plugins required, everything is pre-rendered and you can just go ahead and use it without any plugins. And this is After Effects CS6, so it works with CS6 and all the versions that came out after CS6, so CC 2015 and so on. Alright, let's get started right away. So here I am inside the project file, and the first thing you will need to do is go inside your edit folder, and here you have a folder for media and a folder for text. And media will be all your holders for the actual footage. So inside these media holders you can use, let's double click one to access it, and there's a placeholder here which you will have to go ahead and select and delete. And let's go ahead and right click inside this window here, choose import file, and I'm just gonna import an image for this just to demonstrate how this would work. But you can also of course import any type of media that works with After Effects. So after you've imported your file, go ahead and select your file and drop it inside this composition, so the media holder 1 for example. And then if I go inside main render, which is the composition you're gonna render, you can see it updating here. And let's set this to half resolution just so it works faster. So we have let's go ahead, and you can go ahead inside this main comp. So inside main render you will have a main comp and a borders layer. So for example, borders is just these letterbox aspect ratio thing. So you can go ahead and for example disable this if you don't want it. And this also works for text sequences. So let's choose a frame here. Alright, so you can go ahead and disable this, or you can even for example make it smaller. Alright, so you can see how this works. This will be our borders. And if you go inside the main comp, here you can see all of the sequences layered out, and everything is in order of appearance. So for example, our first media holder starts at around frame 580. Alright, so here starts our media holder, and of course this you will probably gonna use some footage, but it works the same way as with images. Alright, and then it jumps to the text scene, and then it jumps to another, to the second media holder one. So here you will have to delete this guy and import another footage, and so on. And you can keep this up for all of these media holders. Alright, and let's take a look at the text now. So the text, let's see, text title 1. Alright, here we have it, and you can see it has some animation. And also if I select this layer and go to my effects controls, you can see that there's a ramp applied to it. Alright, so you can go ahead, and I really recommend you just edit the text by double clicking the layer. Alright, and editing the already existing layer. So new text here for example. Alright, so you don't delete this layer and make a new layer, rather you just edit the already existing layer to preserve animation and the ramp. And of course this is a PT Sans font, and for example if you want to use a different font, so let's see Asens, and maybe increase the type here. You might have to readjust the ramp, so you can select the ramp and move these points around and create a different effect. Let's undo all of that. So that's how you edit the text, and this is what you will have to do for all of these title holders. And if I go inside my main render now, you can see the text updating, and everything works as it should. And let's undo this. Alright, so this is how you edit all of the titles and all of the media holders. So after you've done editing all of that, you can go ahead and inside this main comp, inside main render, so inside main comp, you can see that here we have all the layers, and this is synchronized to the track in the preview that you've seen. So for example, if you want to use a different track, you can see that all of these scenes have a little wiggle room, as I like to call it. So for example, if you want to use a different scene and you want the scene 1 to last longer, all you have to do is just spread the layers apart and then simply increase the duration of your scenes, right? So this all scenes last up to, let's see, 200 frames, which is roughly equivalent of 6 seconds, and that should be enough time for a single title sequence. Alright, so let's see, back in main comp you can access all of the scenes through the main comp composition. Alright, so for example scene 1, you can see that it fades out around the middle portion of the duration here. So midway through this fades out. So let's say maybe you want to increase the duration, and so you have to delay the fade out. You access scene 1, alright, and all of the scenes are laid out almost exactly the same. This is the layout of the scenes. So let's take a look here. We have a this is gonna be the background, which really this leaves a little room for editing. But here on top of the background you have CC layer. So this is an adjustment layer. Let's choose another frame here. This is an adjustment layer, and you can see it has a tritone effect applied to it, and you can simply change the color of the tritone, and then you change the background as well. Alright, so you can pretty see how you can drastically alter the look of the scene. Alright, and let's cancel this. And then we have, let's see, we have a layer for the feathers in the background. And then we have our title. Alright, and then we have some more feathers in the front. And then we simply have a some small particles, and we have a highlight, which is a mask with some brightness applied to it in this area. Then another CC layer, so CC stands for color correction. And then let's actually just unsolo all of these, and the blur layer will be responsible for this slight bump here in the beginning of the scene, and you can see it has a curves applied to it. And then here we have a second curves applied to it, and if I select this blur layer and press U, this will give me all my keyframe information, and you can see that the second curves applied to it is also responsible for some of the fade out. Alright, so if I hide this effect, you can see that we get rid of some of the fade out. And then we have a fade layer, which is a simple black layer, and if I press T for opacity, you can see that this fades out from 0 to 50. Alright, so if you want, for example, to delay the fade out, you can grab these keyframes, so the second curves and the fade, and just offset them in time, and now the fade out lasts through the whole duration, through the whole 6 seconds duration. So if I want to have a completely fade to black fade out, you can increase the opacity for the fade here for the second keyframe to 100. Alright, so now you have a completely dark fade. And all of the scenes follow exactly the same setup. And let's take a look at scene 6, for example. Alright, so pretty much all of the same. This scene has some flicker that is synced to the soundtrack from the preview. So for example, here is the flicker layer, and you can disable this if you don't want it. If you don't want any flicker, you can of course disable the blur. You can adjust the CC, so this also has some desaturation applied to it. You can get rid of that, and hopefully you get an idea of how to work with this. Alright, and that's pretty much it. Let's take a look quickly inside the plugins version. Alright, so this will be the plugins version, and this will load a little slower. And I'm gonna set the resolution to half here. Make sure you set the resolution to full before you make the final render, just in case. You just keep that in mind. So if I go inside main comp, everything is laid out exactly the same. Let's take a look inside scene 2, for example. Alright, all of the same layers and keyframes and animation. The only difference here is that all of the particular layers are not pre-rendered. So for example, there's a particular layer here for the background, and you can go ahead and go to effects and adjust this, for example, change the seed, change the look. And the feathers are made with particular, so if I go inside the feathers layer, alright, so this will be our feathers. If I go inside the feathers layer, you can see that I have now I can control the particular layer. Alright, so for example, I can increase the particles, I can add more feathers, change the seed, and change pretty much all of these options. So if I go back inside, you can see we get a different look. Alright, so you might want to use this. This version is recommended to more intermediate users, but everything is laid out the same. So every layer, every particular layer is intact, and you can edit it, edit all the particles as you want. After you've done with all of your editing, of course, you go in your main render, you go to composition, pre-render. After, let's see, here where it says Costume AV, you can click and choose a different format. I recommend going with H.264. Go inside format options and crank up the target bitrate and maximum bitrate maybe to 150 and maybe 300. So something like this. Hit OK. If you've imported a soundtrack, don't forget to check audio output. Alright, make sure this is on. Hit OK, hit render, and that's it. That's all there is to it. If you have any questions, please contact me through my profile on VideoHive, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. But that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you around.